a very good morning to you, my friends, and happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the sewing room. Today we are finally finishing off my Love and Kisses quilt. I gotta be honest, I have actually started quilting it. I'm only about a quarter of the way in, so you haven't missed very much. But yeah, I'm excited to get this finished. It's been a long time coming, but we will get it finished. The reason why this second part of the vlog, if you haven't seen the first part, I'll link it. The first part was me finishing the quilt top. Second part is me actually finishing the quilt, but the reason why it's taking me a while for me to actually finish it is because I ran out of basting spray, and then it just took forever to find anywhere that stocked it. I just couldn't find it anywhere, and if I did, it was terribly expensive, and I'm like, I'm not paying that much money for basting spray. But I did eventually find this one. So I've tried a new brand of basting spray. This is by Odif. It's the 505 temporary adhesive spray. And so far so good, like nothing has moved. I'm actually kind of liking this a little bit more than my normal one that I use, which is this one. This is the Helma 101 quilt basting spray. I do have like the most smallest amount of this left, but I knew it wouldn't be enough to be able to baste this quilt, so obviously I had to buy a new can. But I love trying new products and seeing if something else will work better or differently, and so far this one's been really good. The movement in the layers hasn't been as much as what it would be with the Helma. I mean, the Helma one was good, but this one's kind of just gone up the next level. So I will link where I got this from. I did have to buy it online, but so far so good. I'm very pleased with purchasing this and trying it. So this is the first quarter of the section that I have quilted, and it possibly doesn't really look like much, but I am stitching in the ditch. You can see it here if it will focus, but I'm actually going down these lines here that sort of highlight the cross. It's almost like a cross hatch type design. The reason why I chose to do the quilting as I have is I really didn't want to take too much away from the actual design of the quilt, because it already is quite busy with the prints and the actual block design. Yeah, I wanted the quilting just to be quite subtle and just sort of sink into the background while still kind of highlighting and popping the actual cross design. The quilting design will obviously be more noticeable on the back of the quilt, but on the front it's going to be quite subtle. So this is the design on the back of the quilt, and of course you'll have the lines going that way as well, so a really nice sort of cross hatch design. So the goal for today is to actually get the quilting finished, because I definitely think I can do that. The first quarter that I've finished, I did that in like not even half an hour yesterday afternoon. So yeah, we'll definitely get quilting done today, and I'm gonna put it out there. I think we could also bind it as well. So yeah, let's see how today goes. I think we can really crack it out and get this finished. Sans label. I haven't thought about the label yet. It will possibly be a hexie flower. However, I actually do have a spare Love and Kisses block that I didn't actually put into the quilt, so maybe I might make that into the label, depending on what the design is. I can't remember what it looks like. So yeah, we might do that, but we'll see. Let's get it quilted and basted first. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. And yeah, we'll see how we go. Let's go. Let's quilt. Happy days. Currently filming on my phone because my camera is just being a little bit glitchy up there, so I think I'm just gonna plug it back in to the battery and just see if that does something. I'm also trying out this little mic on my lapel. I have used this before with my best friend. We're sort of in the works of doing something fun, but I thought I'd give it a try on my phone and sort of see how well it goes with the vlogging. Yeah, see if this is just something a little bit different that I can do when I'm vlogging. But I have finished the quilting going one way, and I'm about to go the other way, but we needed a tea break first, and the dog needed to have a pee break, and you know, all those little things that need to happen in between doing the things that you'd like to do. I thought I'd also take this opportunity to try and figure out how I'm going to bind it, whether I want to do just a solid binding just out of like a solid fabric, or maybe something with a print. I don't know. I have a tin that's full of all of my leftover bias binding bits. It's a fun little Harrods tin, little biscuit tin or butter biscuit selection tin. It's just chock full of lots of different bias binding bits that I just, yes, well, there's no biggies in there for you, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just all leftover bias binding, you know, when I've just sort of over measured, and I just sort of use them for like little projects. So I don't know whether to do just like a plain white around the edge, or I did quite like the light pink that I had. I thought that might look really good, but I don't have any more of this color, and I'm not gonna have enough. Hey, my puppy, does that smell alright to you? Oh, thanks. And I don't want to do anything with like a really intense kind of print, because I don't want to, it's already busy enough. So that's why I thought maybe a solid binding might be the best way to go. I do have stripes. I don't know, I'm just trying to picture it with the stripes. Can you see that? Nope. No, you can't see it. There's a couple of options. I like the white. I might even do like, I'll see what like an off cream. I've got plenty of off creamy type ivory colors. Maybe I might do that. It's kind of the next thing that we need to start thinking about, because I will definitely get the quilting finished for this today. Easy peasy. I'll mull it over as I'm quilting it and think about what will work best. But yeah, decisions. Happy days, my friends. The quilting is all done, and now I'm onto the binding. Just popping a scarf on because it is chilly. It's a rainy old day today, and so rain in the winter makes for a chilly day. So just gonna tuck myself in and get some warmth into me. So where I last left you, I was trying to decide on what to do for the binding, and I've chosen this solid. I've already cut them up into 2.5-inch strips, but it's like a off white, well, it's definitely an off-white. It's almost like an ivory type color with like the smallest like hint of like a blushy pink. I don't know whether that's coming across on the camera, but I really like it, and I think it's just a really nice sort of subtle kind of add to the quilt. How do I make binding again? I've just had like a brain fart. I gotta sew them together first and then press and make it into binding. Don't worry. Oh my gosh, my brain is all over the place today. So I've got to change colours in the sewing machine because I've been using a really nice lovely light blue for the quilting. So now I've got to change for the binding. So we'll do that, piece it together, and then we'll come back to the ironing board and press. Okay, my friends, update for you. I've just sewn on the binding to the back of the quilt because I'm going to bring it forward and then sew it on the front. I am currently partial to a machine finished binding. It's just so much quicker, although I do still think that finishing it by hand is still the better option, or the best option. It's the more old school kind of way. I think if I was making this for someone special and I had the time, then I would sew it by hand, but I'm impatient to get this finished. I just want to kind of get it finished and move on to another project. So I'm just gonna clip off all of the sort of like rabbit ears that I've got from my binding, and then I'll fold it over from the back to the front, and I like to then use little quilting clips to clip it into place so that I know everything's secure as I'm sewing it along, and also to make sure that my corners are nice and mitered as well. So I will just go along each edge and get all of that tidied up. Also, I will show you, also added, if I can find it, I made sure to remember to sew in a little Katie and the Machine label. You can't see it, but this one says j'adore, and it's got a little heart on it, so I thought that was kind of appropriate for my Love and Kisses quilt, and I really like how the colour pops off from the back. So let's tidy this up and then we'll finish it up with the machine. Happy days! To my friends, and happy Thursday, and welcome back to the sewing room, and welcome back to day 2 of getting my Love and Kisses quilt finished. As you've just seen, I have finished the binding. That's all now machine finished, and I am just working on the label. I was planning on using the last sort of spare block that I made, but it's not really going to work. I'll get it if I can. So this is the little spare block that I had, and I don't think it's quite going to work as a label, so I might maybe make that into like a little mini wall hanging, pop it up on the wall maybe. I might maybe make it into like a pillow or a cushion, or I don't know. We'll sort something out. So also this morning I've been working on a hexie label because that's what I do. It's my signature. I always do hexie flower labels. So I've managed to scrounge up a few of the fabrics that I used in the quilt top, and I'm going to have just a white center so I can label it as I usually do. I was initially going to do it all outside in the sunshine because it's winter and it's freezing. Hence why I have a nice lovely cup of tea to warm my fingers up. But I was literally out there for like 5 minutes. It was all nice and warm and lovely in the sunshine. Oh, it was just delicious. It was gorgeous. But then like 5 minutes later, along comes a lovely dirty storm cloud, and the wind, I'm sure it dropped like 10 degrees just in that split second. So I've had to come back in and do it here in the sewing room, which I'm not complaining about. I love being in this room. It's my lovely little cozy den. It's my happy place. But I did want to be out in the sun just to warm up a bit. So the goal for today is to finish the hexie flower label, get it stitched onto the quilt, then give the quilt a good press and a de-linting of Charlie's hair, because it's covered in Charlie hair, which everything in our house is, which is just one of the lovely things of owning a beautiful black Labrador thing that he is. And yeah, and the quilt will be finished. So far my camera is behaving. This is actually the second time kind of filming this bit, because I was halfway through filming and then it just shut off. Like it just stops recording out of nowhere, and I don't really know why. So we might be looking into a new camera. We'll see how long this one lasts. I've had it for a really long time. I think I got this around like COVID time, so it has to be at least 5 years old. But thank you, camera, for behaving today. Maybe it's just bored of hearing me just waffle on about goodness knows what. Okay, my friends, my hexie flower is all finished and ready to be put on the quilt. The steps that I take to attach my labels to my quilts have changed significantly over the years. I used to do the whole applique with like heat and bond so it would stick to the quilt and all that sort of stuff, but I don't choose to do that anymore. I just simply use the little fabric glue stick from, is it SNAIL? Yeah, SNAIL. It's a little stick like this, and you can replace it with little tubes of glue. So I just do that now, and I just stick it to the quilt and then do a really quick sort of like quick stitch around the edges. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to press my hexie so it's nice and crisp. I'll take all of the basting stitches out as well. Take the paper out and then pop the glue around the edges and then stick it on the quilt where I think it'll look good. In between then I'll actually put on the details of the quilt as well. Sometimes I also like to starch my hexie flowers. The starch that I use is just a really basic starch that I get from the supermarket. I know there are some really nice fancy starches that you can get now, and I'd like to test one day if I find one that's suitable. But yeah, I just use a real basic supermarket starch and it does the job. Right, I am now up to the step of stitching the quilt label onto the actual quilt. You've just seen me glue it on and then press it into place. The reason why I glue it and then press it is when I press it, the heat from the iron kind of like melts the glue kind of thing, and it just sort of makes the label stick to the quilt a little bit better. So I thought I'd actually show you the stitch that I use, or how I actually stitch it onto the quilt. As I mentioned, I kind of use like a slip stitch, invisible stitch type stitch. I don't know whether it's correct or not. It's kind of like my own kind of hybrid of a stitch that I find useful, and it gets the job done. Maybe it's like a ladder stitch. It's kind of in between all of those. You know, whatever we're calling it, it gets the job done, and I like the way that it finishes the quilt off. So I'm just going to get a length of thread. I'm just using cotton thread, just a nice sort of like arm's length. Pop it through the eye of the needle, and I do a double strand, and I just knot it at the end. I usually do a double knot when I'm doing this kind of stuff, because I find that just doing a one knot isn't secure enough, and sometimes even a double knot's not enough, but that's what we're going to do today. And I try and do as small a kind of tail where the knot is as much as possible, but if not, it's no problem. Okay, I'm going to pan you down and I'll show you how I stitch. So I start at any edge. I don't have a particular one that I'll start with, and so what I'll do is I'll bring the needle and take it in under the quilt backing and also through the batting, but not through the actual quilt top layer. Take the needle down, and then I'll bring it up right at the edge alongside the quilt label there, so like that, and then gently pull it through, and hopefully if it works, sometimes it takes a couple of tries, pull it through, and hopefully if it works, just gently pull it, and the knot should bury in under the batting, so we should have a nice secure start there. And then from here I just go in, I take a little stitch on the backing, and then grab just a few little bits of the edge of the quilt label there, and then pull my thread through, and then we do it again. I take a small little chunk of the quilt backing and then a little bit of the quilt label and pull it through. So essentially I'm just kind of taking just a couple of little strands there of the fabric, couple of little strands of the fabric of the quilt label, like so, and then pulling it through. So you're creating kind of like a really nice invisible stitch by just catching the backing fabric and then catching a little bit of the label and then pulling it through. I find using a neutral type color works, and just trying to get this bottom stitch as close or even under the quilt label if you can, and then catch that corner, pull it through, and then we just continue on through the other side. So I always try and get the corners quite precise, because that's the first thing that's going to catch, and we want them to be nice and secure. And boop. Okay, so that's what we're kind of working with, and you just carry on doing the same thing all the way around the edges. And when I get to the end of the thread, I'll show you what I do to finish it or knot it, and then start another strand when it comes to the point where you don't have any more thread left. So I've got my hands, right, and I've always got my middle finger up under the fabric. So this is where my thumb is, and this is the edge of the quilt label here, and I've got my finger there making sure that my needle doesn't come through and touch my finger to the quilt top, because we don't want any stitches on the top of the quilt top. So I've always got my middle finger just here giving support and making sure that my needle doesn't go all the way through, like so. Okay, so I'm about halfway through, and I've come to a point where I am ready to knot this off and get a new fresh piece of thread because it's getting a little bit short. So the way that I finish off my thread is I will just take another little stitch of the backing and then another little stitch from the label edge, like so. Pull it through and I leave a little loop, put my needle through the loop, and I just create a really small little knot there, and I just sort of get it to the point where it's kind of right up against the edge of the quilt label. Then with my needle I will actually take it down in pretty much the same spot as where the knot is, and then I'll take a sort of like a big stitch along the edge of the label so that my needle is both under the batting and the quilt backing, but it's not going through the front of the quilt. Then from there just pull it through. That will bury the knot on the side, or bury it as best as possible, and it also buries the tail as well. Then with my snips, just as close as possible to the surface of the backing, I snip that off, and the tail of the thread is now buried in there, and it's knotted and secure, and it's nice and flush next to the label. You can't really see it. So now to continue from this point, I've just loaded my needle up with some more thread and I've double knotted the end, and just like the way that we started, I'm going to take a stitch away from the label, bury the needle under the quilt backing and also the batting, but not going through the top of the quilt. And then from here I'm going to bring the needle up right next to where I have that delicate little knot. Sometimes I'll go sort of like before it or after it, just depends on where my needle comes out. So you can see my little knot there, and I'm just going to bring my needle up, bring it through, gently give a tug so that the knot will bury in underneath the batting. Come on. So now my thread is secure and the knot is buried underneath the batting. And from here we just continue on the same stitching all the way around the rest of the label. Okay, my friends, happy days. My Love and Kisses quilt is all finished and I think she's just so lovely. Look at her, she's so sweet there. I love it. So I've had to hang her here for the moment on our little kitchen hutch because it's quite rainy and wet outside. But I think hanging it here gives you a really good insight into how big it is, or how big I decided to make it. You could definitely make it a lot bigger. Like I could have kept going with more blocks, but I chose not to. You can see just the really subtle quilting that I chose to do as well. And down on this side, we've got, of course, the label, and then also the one that says J'adore from Kylie and the Machine. And I didn't show you what I actually wrote on it. I just put the date, the name of the quilt, and then made by me. But yeah, happy days, another quilt finished. It's always a good feeling to finish a quilt, but then you also feel just a little bit empty as well, because I'm like, well, now what do I do? I know what I have to do. I have to do the quilt along. We're gonna get stuck into that. So yeah, so that's what we'll do, I think. So as always, friends, thank you all so much for watching, and I will definitely see you all again sometime very soon. Bye bye.